Sometimes, the voice you ignore is the only one that can save you. The morning sun burned against the glass walls of the corporate tower, casting long shadows across the courtyard. Executives hurried in polished suits, phones pressed to their ears, the rhythm of power echoing with every step. And then one sound cut through it all. A broom clattered against the pavement. A voice tore across the air. Sharp, desperate, undeniable. "Don't get in the car." Every head turned. Time seemed to stop. The CEO, Catherine Hale, froze mid-step, her hand hovering above the sleek black car door. Her sharp heels silenced on the marble floor. Silence spread like shockwaves through the plaza. Who would dare? Who could shout at her? The untouchable woman everyone feared and respected. All eyes shifted to the source. A janitor. Daniel. The man no one noticed. But why would a janitor stop the most powerful woman in the company? Heroes aren't born in comfort. They're forged in silence. Long before that shout shook the courtyard, Daniel's life was already a quiet battlefield. He was a single father, a widower, raising his 8-year-old daughter Lily in a cramped apartment where cracked ceilings whispered of broken dreams. At dawn, while the city still slept, Daniel was already awake. He cooked a simple breakfast, toast, a single egg, a glass of milk. He slipped a little note with a smiley face into Lily's lunchbox, even when he wasn't sure he could afford more than scraps. He promised her the world, even as debt and grief pressed heavy on his shoulders. By sunrise, he was at the corporate tower. Mop in one hand, keys jangling at his belt, eyes lowered as powerful executives swept past. To them, he was invisible, just another man in a uniform stained with soap. But Daniel noticed everything. A flickering light bulb, a stain no one else cared about, a tremor in someone's voice as they cried in the restroom. His life had trained him to see what others ignored, and it was this gift of noticing what others ignored that would soon decide life or death. Power can build walls, but it can't stop fate. Catherine Hale. The name alone made boardrooms silent. She was young, fierce, and sharp as a blade. Her heels struck the marble floors like a metronome of power. Every word she spoke was law, every glance carried weight. To her employees, she was untouchable, a force of ambition wrapped in elegance. From the shadows of the lobby, Daniel often saw her pass. He admired her strength, her presence, the way she seemed to command a world that had crushed him. But admiration was all it could ever be. He cleaned the floors she walked on. She signed the checks that kept men like him invisible. Their worlds were galaxies apart, or so it seemed, until one morning, their lives slammed together in the most unexpected way. Details don't lie. They whisper warnings. Catherine stepped out of the tower, her stride as sharp as her reputation. Waiting at the curb was her sleek black car, polished, gleaming, ordinary to every eye around her. But not to Daniel. He saw it instantly. The chauffeur wasn't the usual man. This one sat stiff, his eyes flickering nervously toward Catherine. The car shone like glass, yet a faint wire slipped from beneath the driver's side door, thin, almost invisible, hiding in shadow. Daniel's pulse hammered. His instincts, sharpened by years of surviving life's cruelties, screamed at him. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Executives bustled past without a glance. Security guards looked straight through. No one else noticed. No one but him. He had seconds to choose, stay silent or risk everything. 1 second of courage can rewrite destiny. Daniel's throat burned as he shouted, louder than he ever had in his life. "Don't get in the car." The courtyard froze. Executives stopped mid-step. Catherine halted, her hand trembling above the handle. Silence cut through the air until a sound broke it. Click, a metallic snap from beneath the car. Subtle, deadly. Security guards surged forward, pulling Catherine back. The driver's eyes widened, panic flashing as his hands fumbled near the dashboard. Daniel pointed, voice cracking with urgency. There, under the car. Within seconds, chaos erupted. Guards dropped low, uncovering a crude but very real device strapped to the undercarriage. A bomb. Catherine's sleek black car was wired to kill. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Catherine's life, seconds from ending in fire, had been spared by a janitor. But then came the truth that froze her blood even colder. The driver wasn't random. He wasn't an outsider. He was one of her own. An insider from Catherine's company. But who inside wanted her dead? When the dust settles, the real questions begin. Sirens wailed. Police swarmed the plaza. The driver was dragged from the car in handcuffs, his face pale with defeat. The device beneath the vehicle was carefully dismantled, each wire a reminder of how close death had come. Executives stood frozen, their power useless, their confidence shattered. Catherine's hands trembled as reality sank in. Her empire had nearly ended on a bright morning sidewalk, and in the middle of it all stood Daniel, the man they had never seen, the man who emptied their trash and mopped their floors, the janitor who had become the center of everything. The company was shaken by betrayal. If an insider wanted Catherine gone, who else could be trusted? And in that moment of chaos and fear, Catherine's eyes found Daniel. For the first time, she didn't see a janitor. She saw the man who had saved her life. Gratitude can break barriers that power built. A few days later, Catherine Hale walked through a neighborhood she had never entered before. Narrow streets, peeling paint, windows with curtains stitched by hand. At the end of one dim hallway, she knocked on a door. Daniel opened it, startled. Beside him stood Lily, clutching her worn stuffed rabbit, her eyes wide at the sight of the most powerful woman in the city. Inside, Catherine saw the truth. The small apartment, the second-hand furniture, the quiet strength of a man who worked 2 shifts just to keep his daughter fed. And yet, she also saw love everywhere. In the way Daniel cooked for Lily, in the little notes tucked into her school bag, in the gentle patience etched into his tired face. Catherine's voice softened, a rare moment of vulnerability breaking through her armor of steel. Respect bloomed where power had once built walls. Gratitude formed a bridge neither status nor wealth could deny. But Daniel never asked for applause. He never saved her for recognition. So what did he truly want? Heroes don't always wear suits. Sometimes they wear tired shoes. That morning proved a truth too often forgotten. Courage doesn't always come from titles, or wealth, or power. Sometimes, it comes from the man who sweeps the floor, the father who wakes before dawn, the soul who notices what the world ignores. Daniel was no executive. He was no soldier. He was simply a single dad, carrying his daughter's dreams in his weary hands. And yet, in 1 second of courage, he rewrote destiny. Catherine's empire survived because an invisible man chose not to stay silent. His story reminds us that the strongest heroes are often the quietest, the kindest, the ones who act without expecting anything in return. And now, I ask you, what would you have done in Daniel's place? Would you have stayed silent, or shouted when it mattered most? Because sometimes, the quietest man in the room carries the loudest courage.